So this next portion of this video for SimpleNexus is going to be talking about actually working on the loans in SimpleNexus. And I'm calling this part one because there are several sections we want to cover, and I really want to break them up in case you guys need to come back to a specific section. This first one is going to be an overview of the loans page in SimpleNexus and how to start or finish an application. So let's get into that right now. I'm going to go back to simplenexus.com. All right, so here we are at simplenexus.com, and what I want you to do now is go ahead and go over here to the left, if you see my mouse, and I'm going to click on Loans. Okay, so there's a few things I want to introduce first of all about this main page here. You'll notice on this one it says active loans. That's what's highlighted right now. And so we can, of course, search for a specific borrower if we want right here. If you notice, these all have loan numbers. So see, these are applications that were completed and submitted into Encompass, and now they have loan numbers. Some of them have certain statuses, like how far along they are in the process. This one is locked, so you'll see it filled in. It says the loan amount. And then it's also very important to realize that the borrowers, when they have initials next to their name here in the circle, that actually means that they have a SimpleNexus account and they're connected. So I can actually send tasks and they can sign things. All of that is good. But if they don't, if it's unlinked, that means it's going to have a little person and a plus sign. So keep an eye out for that. And if you're kind of wondering why you're not able to send your borrower any tasks, there's no option for that. It could be that they're not connected yet. So you want to make sure to resend that e-consent request through Encompass in the e-folder and go to e-consent and then send through SimpleNexus. It'll have them create an account and it'll have them sign that e-consent so they can get connected and you guys can start communicating. Now, if the loan is not in here, it's not active, and the borrower thinks maybe they submitted it, or maybe they only got part of the way through and you got a notification as a loan officer that your borrower started an app but didn't finish it, you wouldn't want to look here because of course it's not complete, so it wouldn't have a loan number yet. You would want to click next to it where it says loan applications. And this is where you'll start to see applications that were started but weren't finished yet. If you notice now, these say in progress. Now, this one I'm going to go ahead and go into, and I can show you guys where to go ahead and see what they've filled out so far in the application, and then that way you can go ahead and go from there. So if I click on view loan application after I've chosen that borrower, I can see, oh gosh, they didn't get very far at all. They're only 7%. So this is what it looks like, you guys, from the loan officer side of things as far as the application. So it obviously has a run credit, generate pre-approval and pre-qual, and has a place for notes. So that's different than what it looks like from the borrower perspective. Most everything else, though, honestly, format-wise, looks very much the same. So when your customers are filling out an application, they're just going to go through each of these sections and complete these just like you would if you were taking an application. Now, as a loan officer, if you're either taking that application over the phone or maybe you're helping finish it up right here on this one, we're going to come down to credit authorization, and then it's going to ask you whether or not the borrower authorized credit, and you're going to say yes or no. And of course, how did they authorize it? This information will actually flow over and auto-populate now into Encompass. Now, the other thing you'll want to normally do is come down once you're finished with everything else and review and submit. So if your customers do fill out the application themselves, they'll already be asked for credit authorization and e-consent and borrower certification authorization. All of that will be included with their application. This is just if you're either taking the application or if you're finishing it up for them. You'll want to go ahead and hit this button where it says request e-consent or request borrower authorization, probably both. And then once you've done that, then you'll hit submit. If you don't actually want to submit it into the LOS yet, because of course you can't make changes after that happens inside of SimpleNexus, you can only change in Encompass once it's submitted. So if you just want to go ahead and save and close for now, you can do that as well. Just go ahead and hit save and close. In this case, I didn't really enter anything new. I'll probably end up hitting close. If I do want to make any notes though in here as a loan officer, just know that you can go ahead and add notes in here, and those will only be visible to you. They're not visible to the team members. They don't go into Encompass. They don't go to Total Expert. They're just visible in here in the application for you. And if you ever just want to see what things look like from the borrower version of the application, you can actually click right here at the bottom where it says view borrower app. And one other thing I want to point out, if you have a co-borrower, you'll want to come up here to the top left if you're taking the application and click right here and then click on add borrower. So you can go ahead and add another borrower right there as well. If you have a separate borrower that is not going to be on the this application, but they're going to be on the loan, they have a totally separate application, then you'll just want to complete a totally separate application for that person and then go ahead and merge those files in Encompass. All right, so let me close out of here. Close without saving. And I'm going to go back to my loans. And now this time, if you want to go ahead and take the application yourself from scratch, maybe they hadn't started one that you're trying to finish up and you just want to start one that you're going to be doing over the phone or maybe in person, you'll come up here to Actions and then click on New Loan App. And then you'll either put in the email address or the phone number and click on Create New Loan App. Then from this point on, it's going to look just like it did when we were trying to finish up that application for them through that other screen. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you guys, very, very important. If you are starting an application from scratch yourself, make sure that you have got the right email address in here that they are actually going to be using, because if you don't, and if your borrowers then go to create a new SimpleNexus account later and these email addresses don't match between the one that you've input and the one that they're inputting, it could ask them to create a new loan application. So you don't want that, and just make sure that it matches up so that they're actually going to be inputting that email address. Okay, that's just a little pro tip.
For sure.
Okay, so the other part we want to really quickly touch on this page before we get into the loan itself is what these different milestones mean. So of course, we think application, but keep in mind when it says application, that means you have all 6 pieces needed for a compliant application where basically the disclosures would be triggered. So until that happens, this won't actually fill in. It will once we have all 6 pieces. It'll show application complete. And then P, of course, is when the processing milestone has been completed. U is for when the underwriting milestone has been completed. And then A, you would think is for approved, but that's not initial approval. Actually, this particular A, although it does mean approved, it means final approval. So once it is final approval, there's nothing else left to be done prior to closing documents. That will get filled in. And then C is, of course, when closing documents have gone out. And then S is for settlement, or as we like to call it, funding. So that's it now for this particular screen. Now we're going to go into the loans and actually see some of the things you can do.